What angle do you think they're going to take to go back to court?
Well, they've hinted at that. They'll appoint a blue ribbon commission, probably full of famous scholars and distinguished politicians, all of them people who are ready to pack the court. And then they'll make some argument about why the court is not functioning properly. And they'll say that we can make it much more efficient. And then this race thing, which is just dreadful, because the truth is the human soul is immaterial. And if it is immaterial, then the human being can be free. And if it's not immaterial, it can't be free. And things that don't have matter don't have color. So the idea that you would identify the human being with the color of the skin, that is a specific evil that was committed by the Confederacy. And for that matter, Adolf Hitler.
And he said, right, so we're just trying to verify that Michael Shanahan issued the check. That's all. Well, there's a real Michael Shanahan. And I'm thinking, oh my God. Well, that's not good. And I'm like, oh, okay. So he leaves. Becky calls, what's going on? I go, they're trying to call Michael Shanahan. She's like, get out of the bank. And I'm like, I can't. This guy's got my shit. I leave the bank for sure. They're calling the cops. I have to wait. Hang up the phone. A minute later, my phone rings. I look at it. I don't recognize the number. I pick it up and I go, hello. And there's a woman like, hi, this is Kimberly from SunTrust Bank. Is this Michael Shanahan? And I'm like, yes, it is. And she goes, hi, we have someone here at the bank trying to cash a cashier's check that was drawn on your from the title company. And I'm like, okay. And they said, how much was the amount for? I said, yeah, that was Scott Cugno. It was about $29,000 even, I think. And she says, that's right, Mr. Thank you very much, Mr. Shanahan. I said, hey, how did you get my number? Because if you called information, you would have got his real number. And I go, how'd you get my number? Oh, we called the title company. They looked on the application that I had filled out, and I'd used the cell number. And they said, we just got it off of there. I hope it's okay. No problem. Okay, thank you. Boom. Hang up the phone. 5 minutes later, still, the guy comes out with some woman, counts out the money to me, gives me the money. I stand up, and he says, Mr. Cugno, I would like to say that I feel very uncomfortable about this transaction. And I said, well, what is it exactly? And he goes, I can't put my finger on it. And I said, well, it'll come to you. And I walk off. Listen, I was terrified, fucking terrified.
Would you urge all the American people not to take the vaccine? Would you become part of the campaign not to take the vaccine if it were voluntary? Explain why not.
No, I'm not anti-vaccine. People call me anti-vaccine because of the way of marginalizing me and silencing me and saying,
that's why I'm asking you the question.
I'm not anti-vaccine. Look, Alan, I've been trying to get mercury out of fish for 37 years. Nobody calls me anti-fish.
God bless you. I support you on that 100%. But what would you do?
Let me just say
television. What would you tell the American public if a vaccine were available and if you were invited, say, to speak to members of the Black community, members of the Latino community, members of the general American community, and they said,
if they come out with the vaccine, it does what Bill Gates says it's going to do, which is you give one shot, you get lifetime immunity, and there are vanishingly rare serious injuries. So I don't mind, jab site, redness, itching, forget about it. I don't care. I'm talking about deaths for brain damage, 1 in a million. That may be acceptable. In that case, and it works, and I'd say, I tell people, yeah, I'm going to get it. Let's go ahead and get it.
If you're saying 12 to 18 months, 25, he's saying 12 to 18 months. You're saying
and I agree with that. I think that's extremely aggressive because of the phases.
It is extremely aggressive?
It is.
Even 12 to 18 months?
It is.
Okay, but let's just say they can pull it off because Trump's going to put pressure on them and they're going to do 12 to 18 months. Okay, fine. At what point do you think, best case scenario, we'll have it ready that if we have 1 million cases, we can give 1 million people vaccines. Could that be 12 months from now?
But you don't give it to them when they have you give it to them before they get sick.
So at
Right,
some,
like a flu shot you get when the season's
so,
coming.
so at some point,
So then that means you have to give it to 100 million people. It's not
That's
like
correct.
you're giving it to millions.
That's
well,
correct.
let me put a perspective on. So some point in this development of phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, there could be some point in a phase through 3 area where we're beginning to see that we're not seeing untoward side effects or safety issues, and we're seeing some evidence that's effective. There could be a point before it's actually licensed if everybody, the scientific community, it would come to a conclusion that maybe this vaccine we can go ahead and begin to use it before it gets FDA licensed.
China doesn't have enough in terms of assets, but we do need to deter China. And one other thing, Patrick, and that is that what China's leaders did is a crime against humanity. If it isn't, then there is no such concept, and there is no such thing. So I think countries need to hold Xi Jinping and other senior Chinese leaders responsible. And if we can ever get our hands on them, we need the 21st century version of the Nuremberg trials.
And what does that look like? What could that look like?
That could look like what we saw with German leaders, with Japanese leaders after the Second World War. And no one, of course, wants to do this, but we've never seen a crime like this in history. No country has ever attacked every other country. And that's what China has done. It's hard for us to grasp the magnitude of what's occurred, but unfortunately, that's the conclusion that we have to face. And, going forward for our children, forget ourselves, but for our children and for the rest of the world, we need to impose a cost on China so that no regime ever does this again.
Now, I've heard a lot of different versions of why Angelo got killed. What story do you know why he got killed?
He wanted to take over. He wanted to be the boss.
Got it.
That's
pretty much it.
That's it. Well, that, and by being the boss, you're going to have a ton of money coming in. He was shaking down Long John as soon as Ange was killed. He grabbed Long John, who was Angelo Bruno's big earner, because he was the drug dealer, and told him how much he wants, and asked him how much you make, how much you got coming in, and this is how much I want.
This is how much I want. You just got to give me what I want.
Yeah, that's it.
So what's he making at the time before he?
I tell you, they were selling that P2P from what we found out, and it came in 55-gallon drums. And contractors, cement contractors, would use it by throwing it in the concrete, from what I understand. They would make $500,000 on the 55-gallon drums. They would get the drums for nothing. Of course, contractors didn't know what they were using it for by making P2P with it. And they were making a ton of money with it.
$500,000 per drum.
Yeah.
And how many drums were they moving?
A ton of them. I don't know. I mean,
A ton of them. You're not talking like...
a lot of them.
So you said when this happened, you said things got very ugly. What does that mean, things got very ugly?
Well, we didn't know who killed Ange. We wanted to find out. My uncle went to New York, sat down with guys. New York was really upset. Like, boss is killed. The commission is saying, whoa, what's going on here? Who gave the okay for this? My uncle finally was trying to get everything together.
Drive the initiative of socialism knowing that doesn't work? What is the motive behind that? It's got to be more than the professors thinking, the fact that the plumber's making $500,000 you without a degree. It's got to be bigger than that. What's the motive?
It operates on many levels. That's just one level. Here's another level. You've got all these young people, and they are actually living in the middle of technological capitalism, but they're a little bit like the fish that is not really conscious of the water, because the water is all around them. So their world includes Uber and iPhones and Airbnb and GPS. Now, none of this would have come without technological capitalism, right? If you had left it up to the post office, for example, they probably wouldn't even have thought of overnight mail. It took outside private companies like UPS and FedEx, and then the post office goes, oh, wow, even though the airplane's been around for 100 years, we can still do that. We can do it now. So they got... But no innovation comes out of government per se, or very little. But for a lot of young people, they take all this for granted. They never think about how did all these things come to be? They didn't magically fall out of the sky. What is the system that produced them? They don't think about that.
The consumer says, is the meat good? Is it healthy for my kids? Is it going to be cheap? Check, I'm good to go. Why should I, the consumer, be so concerned about what's going on?
Because there's a concentration. So there's an oligarchy of power and control at the top of the food, at the top of the chain, right? And that trickles down to you. So they are able to eliminate competition in the United States while bringing in cheaper, lower quality meat from other countries, 18 other countries, and they can put that on top of our meat, mix it in the grind or mix it in, you can go to the grocery store and you may buy a cut of beef that says product of the USA, but that does not mean that it is a product of the USA. So basically what I'm telling you is, as a consumer, you don't know what you're buying.
If I know these bad times are coming, I'm a regular guy, what else do I do to position myself better?
Well, what a person does is what they can do. And since the average person has no financial education, they can't do much. So like, I can short the market. I'll make more money as the short's coming down. So I'm looking forward to it. But the average pensioner, they're handcuffed. They can't get out. If they take the money out, they're penalized 30%. They screwed them. They screwed everybody. That's Wall Street, the government, and all these guys.
So what can I do? I'm one of them. What do I do? Does it go back to employee, self-employed, business owner, investor? Like, go find a business, go start a business, go reposition yourself career-wise? Is there a 1, 2, 3 step process on what I can do to be prepared for it?
Well, the next book I'm writing with a guy named Jim Rickards. He wrote Currency Wars and all that. The next book I'm writing is called The Ravens. And Jim and I see eye to eye, definition of intelligence. He says, you should have gold and you should have silver. You should have museum quality artwork. I don't have any of that.
Museum quality artwork.
Yeah. And real estate.
What typically happened to somebody that was rebellious against a regime like that?
So, like in school, right? At school, I did go to school. I didn't learn about the revolution or democracy or none of that. Things that I learned is like how brave, like what kind of miracles our dear leader can do, and how bad the West, the democracy, the world was. And everything was brainwashing in school. Like even like learning math was like, there are 4 American bastards. You kill 2 of them. Then how many American bastards left to kill? At like 5, 6 years old, you say 2 American bastards. And the game that you play, we don't play with the Barbie dolls. We don't play some Legos. We play with tanks. We use mud and build tanks and say, the teacher is like, why did you build this tank? I was like, I built this tank because I want to kill our enemies and be loyal to our dear leader.